As I said, we are truly privileged to have the three sort of guest panelists with us. They need no introduction to this audience, or perhaps any audience. Three men who have served India with integrity, distinction, and intelligence. And I think that's all that needs to be said about them. So I'll just invite them to offer brief remarks. First, National Security Advisor, Shivshankar Menon.
Thank you, Pratap. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for asking me to comment on what you rightly said is a very dense and thought-provoking text. But let me at the outset declare an interest. I am guilty of having participated in some of their sessions, some of the sessions of this panel. And I must say I enjoyed them thoroughly. They were very intellectually stimulating, and I hope the text has the same effect on all of you. What I thought I'd try and do in commenting on the text is really to say why I think it has value, and then maybe to say what I took away from it, and one or two differences of opinion on what's in it. I mean, the Chinese would probably say I have 4 values, 5 takeaways, and 2 disagreements with this. Why does it have value? It has value because it's timely. I think we're at a time when there is clearly heightened interest in foreign policy in India. The mere fact that we're all here proves that, and in strategy. And this is an interest which sometimes maybe gets obscured by the sort of instant comment, contrived controversy on 24/7 channels. But there is a serious interest in this because of 2 things. Foreign policy normally is an elite function in most societies. But I think as India's dependence on the rest of the world grows, and as democratization of our own political processes increases, we need, and we feel this need, I think, for much more informed debate on foreign policy, national strategy issues. And this is a track that will contribute to that process. The second reason is the context in which it happens. It happens when there is a shift in the nature and locus of power globally. And at the same time, when you see, how do you put it, a global sort of political awakening, a revolution of expectations, of aspirations, you see this not just abroad. I mean, it's most visible in West Asia. You see it in India as well. You see it all around us. And that's the moment where I think the sense of needing a national consensus on foreign policy is strongest. Third reason I think it has tremendous value is because this is a positive text. It's not just a listing of all the threats and dangers and all the things that could go wrong, which is what so often passes for analysis of the situation, not the weeping, wailing, whining sort of catalogue that we get used to. This is constructive. It suggests ways in which we should move forward and does much less sort of editorializing and instead makes suggestions. This is not to say that I agree with what it says or with every statement in the text, but by raising the level of discussion of foreign policy, I think it makes a major contribution. And the most important thing, I think, is because it also reminds us of the need to pursue a comprehensive and long-term geopolitical vision. They call it NonAlignment 2.0, but responding to the changed historical context. This I would commend very, very highly. So what do I take away from this text, from having read it? The first, I think, is the continuing relevance of non-alignment and its validity as a strategy, not as an ideology, but even in today's changed circumstances, that it remains valid as a guide to what we should be doing with the rest of the world, and for the foreseeable future, which is not very far ahead, and also a reaffirmation that the litmus test of policy must remain its effect on India's transformation. I mean, that is the sole valid test against which we measure the efficacy of policy and what we do. The second part that I think was useful in reading the text was that it actually broadens the definition of what we are about. It stresses, and I quote, national goals, values, and interests that we need to pursue. Now, it's becoming increasingly fashionable, I think, to fall into the sort of realist analysis of just defining interests and projecting a straightforward, selfish view of the world and what do we get out of it. And this is becoming increasingly common in the way we analyze foreign policy and strategy. But to broaden that from interests alone, narrowly defined, to values and goals, actually leads us to consider outcomes and brings a sense of balance, not just of pure selfishness of immediate gain, into foreign policy calculations. And this is important because it also brings an ideology into the calculus. When you start looking at the issues, whether it's South Asia, whether it's dealings with other countries, it actually broadens the calculus and increases the range of tools that are available to us to deal with them. It leads ultimately to the question that they pose at the end, which is, what sort of power will India be? Will India behave as other great powers have in the past, or will she be different? The text has tantalizing references to this scattered right through it, and I wish there was more clarity and a deeper explanation of that. But maybe that's what they should do next. Maybe that's what the group has to turn to. The third thing that I took away from the text was the idea that manpower and knowledge production will be critical to our future. I think for any of us who has been involved in government, I think it's not the numbers, it's the quality and the relevance of the sort of people we're looking for in today's world in India, and certainly in the national security system. This is a constant endeavor to try and find the right people for the right jobs. There is a very useful section which I would also recommend to you to read, where it talks of the new norms of great power intervention and how technology and the new social media, television, NGOs, special forces, how this amalgam today works, and works in geopolitical terms to actually produce things like regime change. That's quite a new phenomenon, and they have it in this text, and it's worth looking at. And it also speaks of the importance of not drawing a line between what is domestic and what is external. When it speaks of capabilities and domestic legitimacy, we have an example of that in today's situation already when we look at the NCTC issue and how we deal with that internally, and how our internal structures are also, in effect, affected by the shifting locus of power and how it works. Running foreign policy in an era of coalition politics is never easy, and the whole issue of capabilities is something which I think they've dealt with very well. So what are my disagreements with them? They say right at the outset and argue throughout that we need to develop a strategic consensus in India as a goal. Maybe I'm cynical, or maybe I'm too old, I don't know. But I'm not sure that this is either attainable or desirable. You know, we have this myth that we all are brought up on, that there was this golden age when everybody agreed on Indian foreign policy in the 50s and 60s, but actually there was never such a time. We have had real arguments about foreign policy right through. It doesn't matter which period of our history you look at. And we've always managed, as a result of that debate and argument, to end up with the right, maybe not the best, but certainly with good decisions at the end of it. And that debate is essential to coming out correct at the end, I think. Especially in a society like ours, where we're plural, we have so many interests at play, and we need that debate. So for me, therefore, to say that we must have strategic consensus, we must all think alike, is not a desirable goal, certainly not in the making of foreign policy. But that's an argument that maybe we'll carry through. The other criticism, of course, is that each of these chapters probably deserves a book in itself. And like a good meal, this left me wishing for more. So let's see. I hope they do build on what they've done. Thank you for this work. And I wish you and the work success. Now, but what is success? I think you face the author's paradox. You want your ideas to spread and to become common currency in India and in the world's understanding of India, or to mix metaphors to form the vocabulary of strategic and foreign policy discussion and debate. But that very success would mean that you no longer own the ideas, and you lose and everybody else will think these are their own ideas, self-evident and so logical. So I wish you success in every which way, and I hope that by the time that happens, at least you're on to your next project. All the best. Thank you.